Hello and welcome to part 4 of riding around Launceston. In this video I'm going to talk about roads. Roads probably sounds like a pretty boring subject just to think about, but it does have a lot to do with successful motorcycling. In life there are things we can control and there are things we can't control, and sometimes we say, well, the things we can't control, don't worry about them because you can't make any difference to them, you can't influence them, so just don't worry about them. But that's not the case when it comes to motorcycling. There are things that you can control, that is your own behaviour, your own riding skills, the clothing you wear, the state of your bike, those sorts of things. There are things you can't control. You can't control the weather. You can't control the behaviour of other riders or drivers, and you can't control the state of the road. But that doesn't mean you ignore those things. It means when you're getting on your bike, the things that you can control, you prepare thoroughly and properly for. So you make sure your bike is in roadworthy condition. You make sure that you put on the proper clothing, that it's all fits properly and it's all done up properly and adjusted properly and comfortably, and so on. You wear a helmet because that's the law in Australia. You wear gloves because gloves protect your hands, and it's almost inevitable that when you go down, you're going to put your hands down to break your fall, and that's when people lose fingers and end up with broken hands and so on. So you wear gloves to protect you from that injury. You wear proper boots because the next thing that's going to be injured is your feet, and so proper boots to protect your feet are going to do a lot to preserve them. You wear a jacket for the same reason, and you wear proper pants for the same reason. In other words, you put on all the protective gear and you make sure it's properly adjusted and comfortable. As I said, you make sure your bike is in good condition, roadworthy, and everything's working properly, and you drive according to your skills, according to your bike's abilities, according to your own perception of your actual ability rather than your perception of your ability, and you drive to the conditions. You can't control the weather, but you don't ignore it. You know if rain is forecast that day, then you take your wet weather gear. On a hot day, you take some clothing that will hopefully keep you cool, and you make sure you have water so you can have a drink when you need it. So you prepare for the things you can control, and you think about and prepare as best you can for the things that you can't control. And you're wondering what this has all got to do with roads. I frequently talk about the state of roads in my videos because, after all, a large chunk of the price you pay for a litre of petrol goes in taxes or excise to the government, which is allegedly all used to rebuild and repair roads. Now, I have no evidence to suggest that is not the case. I'm merely saying that's the statement that's given to us. We collect this petrol excise and we use it to build and maintain roads. Now, I'm in Tasmania at the moment, and in Tasmania has some really good roads and some well-made roads, some safe roads. It has some not so good roads, and it has some roads that are rarely used and therefore not very well maintained either. And so you get all sorts of road conditions, and it's the state of the roads and the condition of the roads, a thing you can't prepare for, a thing you can't control, but a thing you must think about and deal with once you're out on the road. Now you can see here I'm on a gravel parking area. This is a place called Honeysuckle Banks. I just dropped in there to have a bit of a look because I know that area, and I just thought I'd have a bit of a sticky beat, but I got there and there's a whole bunch of caravanners there, so I thought there's already enough people around, I'll just move on. But I was moving quite cautiously because there's lots of loose gravel here in this dirt section, and it's easy for the bike to lose traction on the gravel. But so there are some things to think about when we're thinking about the general state of roads and the condition of roads, and I'm going to talk about those now. Now, a good road, in my mind, is one that has a good smooth surface. In other words, it doesn't have any patches or potholes in it. It has markings to show you the lanes and show you the centre line and show you when it's safe to overtake. As you can see here, white lines to say it's safe to overtake. It has rumble strips on the edge, those little strips that as you go over them they rumble, and it's a way of keeping you alert if you're dozing off when you head towards the edge of the road. It has those white posts with reflectors on to show you where the edge of the road is, guardrails or safety barriers when they're needed, and also has a good firm shoulder rather than all broken away, so that when you stop and you put your stand down, your bike is going to be reasonably level and easy for you to pull up. If the road is say 2 or 3 centimetres, 20 or 30 millimetres or more above the soil on the side of the road, as you can see here, then the bike's going to be on quite a lean, and that's going to require a bit of effort from you to pull it up. This road here isn't in such bad condition, but it's not what I'd call a great road. You'll see some better roads later on in this clip, but there are some things about road conditions which, whilst you can have no control over them, you should be aware of them, and you should ride with the awareness of them in your mind to be able to take the appropriate action. The first of those is to think about loose debris that might find its way onto the road. Talking about leaves, sticks, twigs, branches off trees, even gravel, that kind of thing. Now that's quite common in parts of Tasmania because the roads have a camber, they have a curve, there's a curve in the road or something, and the natural course of the water is across that road, and it carries gravel and stones and sticks and leaves and all that sort of stuff onto the road. And the problem is that sometimes those curves are in dark shadow, even in bright daylight, even in broad daylight like now. Some of those curves will be in shadow, and you'll come across those leaves and things, and you'll have to deal with them. Now, you think, okay, it's just leaves, I'm not going to worry about those, but there could be gravel as well. And the problem here is that you're going to have issues with traction. It doesn't necessarily mean your bike is going to lose traction, but it's going to mean if there are loose gravel and things like that on the road, that traction is going to be an issue. So what do? Well, first of all, you keep your head up. Don't look down directly at the road in front of you, because you can't. If you're looking at the front wheel, you're already on the gravel. You're already on the problem, rather than looking far ahead so you can see what's coming up. Approach the leaves and the gravel and move around it if you possibly can, but without any sudden movements. Just move gently, drive around it gently. If you're unable to do that, no sudden or excessive braking, or no sudden or excessive acceleration, because after all, you're wanting to maintain traction. You accelerate, you're going to cause the wheel to spin. If you brake suddenly, the wheels might lock up and cause you to lose traction again. So loose leaves, gravel, that sort of stuff, be aware of it, look ahead, see what's coming up on the road. If you can, ride around it. If not, then gentle rolling through it as gently and as smoothly as you possibly can. A second thing that's undoubtedly going to be a problem anywhere in the world, not just in Tasmania, but there will be a problem in parts of Tasmania, but anywhere where you see roadworks in progress is going to be surface changes. You're going to be riding along and suddenly you'll come to a sign that says roadworks ahead. You've got people digging up the road. You've got a case where there's been heavy rain lately and there are potholes in the road, or there are patches that have been put on the road that have come loose and so on. Again, the same thing is when you're encountering these loose gravel and leaves and debris on the road, is to look ahead. When you see a sign that says roadwork ahead, even if there's nobody working there, it's a good idea to slow down, because you could suddenly find yourself in the roadwork area and find that you were on a smooth road, a surface road, a tarred road with a good bitumen surface. The next minute you're on a gravel road and you were travelling at 100 kilometres an hour. So when you see the sign that says roadworks, slow down. Look ahead and see what's happening as far ahead as you possibly can see, and anticipate what's happening and adjust your speed and your driving line and so on accordingly. I think it's important here is to keep a good distance, the following distance, between yourself and the vehicles in front. And the reason for that is if you see the car in front of you suddenly bouncing over a pothole, you know there's a pothole there and you can respond to it. If you are close to that car, you can't respond because you're so close to the car that you're almost on the pothole as soon as it leaves it. So give yourself a reasonable following distance. Look ahead as far as you can possibly see. Notice any signs that say roadwork ahead. And again, drive accordingly. If you become aware of potholes, try and get around them. It's best not to go into them because you don't know how deep they are, for one thing. Secondly, the edges of the road could be rough and jagged and result in either a flat tyre or worse, a broken wheel. And if that's the case, you're going to go down and it's going to be very unpleasant and very uncomfortable. So again, looking ahead as far as you can, keeping a good following distance, taking notice of signs that tell you about roadworks, things like that. Another thing to be concerned about is animals that are on the road. Now, the animals on Tasmanian roads or on Australian roads come in two varieties. The live ones, and if you're riding around in a urban or metropolitan area. It could be dogs running out of backyards or so on, or it could be just stray animals that are on the footpaths or whatever. But if you're out in rural areas, the live animals could be any sort of native wildlife, from kangaroos to wombats to, in Tasmania, Tasmanian devils, because they are nocturnal animals. And you have no way of knowing what those animals are going to do. If you hit one of those animals, especially if you hit a wombat or a kangaroo on your motorcycle, it's more than likely that you're going to be pretty seriously injured. Those are pretty solid, muscular animals. Wombats in particular are very strong, muscular animals, and they do a lot of damage to cars when a car hits them. So they do an awful lot of damage to a motorcycle if they hit it. So what do you do about that? At night time, if possible, or where possible, use your high beam to try and see as far ahead as you can and try and see if there are any animals coming out. Now, obviously, if a kangaroo bounds out of in front of you, there's not a lot you can do about it. But if you're on high beam, you get a bit of a better view of what's around you on the road. Adjust your speed accordingly when you see signs that tell you that there are deer around or wildlife around or something like that. A second problem with animals on the roads in Tasmania is the roadkill. There are lots of dead animals, unfortunately. Tasmania is famous for its wildlife, and there's lots of it. And unfortunately, many animals are killed by trucks or cars at night. Now, if that animal is on the road rather than on the shoulder or something like that, and you come across it, you have to be very careful not to go over the top of it. You might say, well, it's already dead, so what difference does it make? What difference does it make? You're riding over a hump, you have no traction. A car, if it rides over it with one, or it drives over it with even one or two wheels, it still has two other wheels for traction. But more than likely, the driver's going to see the car, and the drivers are going to see the dead animal and either drive around it or drive in such a way that the animal passes under the vehicle. You don't have that luxury. Your luxury is to try and change lanes, like you might be able to do on this road here, or ride around it. If you ride over it, it's probably going to result in a fall. So high beam on when you can, but be aware that when a driver's coming the other way, dip your high beam. If you've got driving lights that are down low that light up the road, you probably don't need to do that as much, because they're not going to dazzle the driver's eyes. Slow down if you see animals on the road, because you're not necessarily sure that just because the animal's lying down, that doesn't necessarily mean it's dead. It could be wounded, it could be injured, and means you're just lying down and trying to recover and suddenly bound out in front of you again. So watching for wildlife, driving accordingly, riding with high beam on when necessary, and then if you come across an animal on the road that's dead, then ride around it rather than try and ride over the top of it. Now, the next issue with the state of the road is the edges or the shoulders of the road. Now, if you look at this road that I'm on at the moment, on the left-hand side, there is quite a broad, wide shoulder. It's well made. It's part of the road. And so if you have to pull off the road, you can do so reasonably safely there. You can drop your stand down and still be on pretty level road. And providing you look over your shoulder before you get off your bike, or you get off your bike on the left-hand side rather than the right-hand side, you're going to be fairly safe. Now, that's not always the case. There are times when there is no shoulder, the road is only very narrow in the first place, and there is no white line like you can see on the sides of the road here to indicate, well, that's the edge of the road, but there's still a bit of shoulder there. Sometimes there is no such thing. There's just the end of the road, and the end of the road is all broken and jagged and uneven. And so when you go off the road, you go onto the dirt. Now, the dirt could be 20 or 30 or even 40 millimetres below the surface of the road, so that's going to be uneven. So when you're going down, you're going to experience a bit of a bump, and worse, when you try to get back onto the road again, you're going to experience a bit of a bump you're going to have to navigate carefully, so that, and especially at night, that you don't have a spill, or that your steering doesn't become unstable while you try to get back onto the main part of the road. Now, what can you do about that? Well, you can't do anything about the unevenness of the road. That's just the way it is. You can't suddenly go out and build a shoulder. You might wish that the shoulder of the road was in better condition than it is, but if it's not, then there's really nothing you can do about it. But you can just, as you're coming to a stop, obviously slow down gradually, look as far ahead as you can. If necessary, put your high beam on for a moment so you can see what's ahead of you there, and see if there is a safe spot to stop and put down your stand to do whatever it is that you need to do there. Maybe that you just need a comfort stop for a moment, or it may be that you just something's happened and you just want to stop for a moment. At night time, be very careful. Put your high beam on so you can see where you're going and see what the shoulder of the road is like. Check that there is space for your stand to go down. Don't just put it down and let the bike lean over because you're not sure exactly how far it's going to lean, or if there's loose gravel, or if it's hopefully the stand is putting its foot into, or mud or something even worse. And then of course you've got to, once you've done whatever it is you needed to do, try and get your bike up off the stand and going again. Now, if there's a big gap between the road and the shoulder is dirt, getting your bike back on the stand, off the stand, and back up level so you can ride it can be quite a task. You might say, well, if you can't manage that, you probably shouldn't ride the bike in the first place. But think about a situation where you've been just riding for a long day. You've been out on a long day's ride, and you've just for some reason just needed to pull over to the side of the road. Maybe you're a bit later than you thought you would, and you're sending your partner, whatever it is, a message to say where you are and when you'll be home. And so you've taken a few moments to stop. You've not realised until you've put the stand down that the gap between the road where the wheels are and where the stand is could be 40 millimetres. And then you've got to haul the bike back up into an upright position, kick up the stand and be ready to go. Yes, you should be able to manage that, but you've had a tiring day riding and you're looking forward to getting home and you're feeling a bit fatigued and so on. That's quite an effort. So there are some things to think about when you're riding, and things to think about when the state of the roads. Ride carefully, enjoy your ride, and I'll talk to you again when I'm making the next motorcycling video.